Thank you guys. I very much appreciate it. I very much appreciate all of you. I will say, included in there also is Mr. Dix, who I more times than I care to admit am busy repairing a handcuff for someone, and I come across a small or major obstacle, and I always know who to call. I call Bob. And I was doing a very rare handcuff recently. It's called an Adams, the first patented swing adjustable handcuff, but it was a leg iron, very rare. And somebody had put a new keyhole post in the thing. And there was a big bump on the back, and I put a couple tiny scratches trying to file it down, and I called Bob. He goes, "No, just sand the whole thing smooth." Like, Bob, it'll look all shiny. We'll repatina it. And for those that were lucky enough to hear his talk on putting patina on, he has been so generous to me and telling me so much information. And I want to thank you for doing that, because I am still trying to learn, still having a lot of fun doing it. Before I officially start the talk on some of the research I've done, let me start you guys off with a quick little trick here. Harry Houdini was kind of an expert in knots, tying knots. He was an escape artist. You could tie him up, you could put him in handcuffs, he could get out. That's part of the fascination for my handcuff collecting. How would Houdini have gotten out of this handcuff? Well, the same way he got out of knots. I mean, he would just work and untie the knot. But he could do it so quickly, it seemed like magic. Let me give you an example. Your shoes, even your shoes. We all learn to tie our shoes when we're young. You make a bow, you wrap it around, you make another bow. Houdini would practice till he could tie the knot faster than anyone. Let me demonstrate. Anybody out there, just say go.
Go. Go.
Yeah, it's not too late. It's already tied. It's like 0.6, 0.5, 0.6 seconds. You can tie your shoes if you practice enough. And if you ever have your shoelace come through the loop and you accidentally pull, you know what happens. You get a big knot. And the secret is, if you pull the knot really tight, you can't get it undone. Then you're with a fork, or if you leave it loose enough, you can still get it undone. But Houdini would deliberately pull them tight and practice untying them. And I can actually untie that faster than I tied it. Anybody out there, anytime, just say go.
Go.
See, it's just way easier. Don't bother untying it, just take it off. If that happens, if you try that at home and it doesn't work, don't call me. But let me demonstrate how I did it and how Houdini did it. I'll use another colored rope, a red rope. First you make a loop in the rope. Then you pull it through. That leaves what's called an overhand knot, the beginning of tying your shoes. Then I would, Houdini, if he was wrapped up with rope around and around his body, he knew how to actually change the knot, to convert it from a granny knot to a square knot to a slip knot. He could make the knot slip all the way up or down to the bottom, even jump to another part of the rope. Took a lot of practice, but that's what he did. Here. That's not the good part. It gets better when you realize that not only did that happen, but he could slide it off. It slides. It jumps. I don't know, I like it better when it slides. Other people prefer it when it jumps. But it goes on the rope and off the rope. The best part of it is this, though. It actually goes inside the rope. That's why I use red. You can see it right inside the rope, just like that. Normally there's thunderous applause. But wait. When I say inside the rope, let me show you what I mean. Inside the rope. Examine that, check it out, make sure it's really in there.
No, it's in there. Very good.
If it wasn't in there, I wouldn't have given it to him. Harry Houdini sparked my interest as a small boy. And I read every book I could get on him. And I collect every book I can buy on him. I collect every edition of every book I can buy on him. And I realized by the age of about 8 that I was obsessed with whatever I got into. So I tried to get into as little as possible in my life. I live in Duluth, Minnesota. The winters are long and there's nothing to do. So I research. And several years ago, after being diagnosed with cancer, a friend of mine named Gordon bought one of the rarest of all handcuffs, a Lorey combination handcuff. I'd only heard about it, never even seen a photo of one. And he brought it to Indianapolis Lock Show for me to try to open. And about 10 minutes later, I had it open. And I saw these 2 little screws. And I was itching to see what was inside. I said, Gordon, can I try to take this apart? And bless his heart, for those that probably don't know Gordon, this was pretty amazing. He said, yeah, I'm going to bed though, just bring it back the same condition in the morning. So immediately I'm back in my room, I take it apart, and all of a sudden, all these little ball bearings come out and fall all over the floor. I only tell you that because Gordon is not here today. And we will not pass this on. I got it all back together, and then Mark Lundblad, a good friend of mine who many of you know, Mark Lundblad and my friend Joe Fox from California suggested I start researching Joseph Lorey, the patent holder. And I didn't know how to research, I didn't know what I was doing. Next one. And so Joseph Lorey, very quickly, here's what I discovered. Next one. The handcuff was patented September 10th of roughly 1912, exactly 1912. I found out through Ancestry.com that Joseph Lorey was born in Friar, Germany in July of 1869. He immigrated to the U.S. Between 1888 and 1891, conflicting records. He was a machinist in Valencia, California, until 1896. He also patented a combination lock. Stephen, I dare you to find one.
I'll look.
Yes, I don't believe there are any known. He also, I discovered, murdered a man in 1896 while fighting over his gun. And he was placed in San Quentin prison, where he saw a would-be handcuff artist, which I would consider a escape artist, could have been Houdini, and he decided to actually invent a handcuff that he didn't feel Houdini could get out of, or that escape artist. So I found it on newspapers.com, an article from the LA Times dated Christmas Day of 1912. A half interest in a patent lock and handcuffs of combination design, which may baffle even Houdini, is the gift with Joseph Lorey, a prisoner at San Quentin, made yesterday to Leonard Mordaunt. And Leonard Mordaunt was a prison reform worker of national fame who took an interest in Lorey. So this guy invented this handcuff. He's a machinist working in the prison. He decides to build a handcuff. 4 wheels, and I believe 2 have 6 wheels. One has a longer chain, one is a brass body, one is plated. Bottom line is that Joseph Lorey probably had to use whatever he had available in prison. This might account for the unusual working of the handcuff. And next, that's a picture of one. That's the one I took apart and almost didn't get back together. There's only 3 known to exist, but I have evidence that 3 more exist. I've just been unable to physically find them. I did recently find photos of one, and now I just have to find the handcuff. Speaking of which, that reminds me, I would love to hear a story later tonight. Please remind me, Bill, that you had a story from the 70s of waiting on somebody's couch trying to look at one. I want to get that story. Next, there's 4 wheels in the one I opened. And just like a letter lock, there's a small groove that goes through, that's the back of the wheel. But 4 little ball bearings, which actually popped out, that's what fell on the floor. And I just took a small punch, and you can kind of see my little punch holes, punch them so that they stay in as they were originally intended to. I didn't put a new punch hole in Gordon's handcuff, that you could see remnants where they were once there. And some of these guys know Gordon, I gotta be careful what I say.
I promise.
But the wheels are knurled, and that's what the inside guts kind of look like. Next. The state of California State Department and said, do you have any records on a prisoner from San Quentin who went in 1896 roughly, got out, we don't know really when. And it took a few days, but a historian of San Quentin called me back and said, oh yeah, we got a file on this guy. There's like 40 pages, but we charge $0.25 a photocopy. Can you give me a hint as to like which couple pages you want photocopied? I just said, do them all twice and then ship me overnight express, I'll pay the 18 bucks. So that's what they did. They shipped it overnight, but in it was all the letters of his applying for a pardon. In it were his description of what happened. There were all the court documents. There was mugshots of Joseph Lorey, his begging for criminal. There were the article from the Times. All this stuff was in this incredibly valuable file. This story to me was too good to be true. Shots of Joseph Lorey. Yeah, 2 different shots. And next, there's the patent for the padlock. I've seen padlocks, I believe, that are probably from Germany, that are very similar in their operation. A little knob on the end, once you dial the wheels, the knob pulls out and the shackle will open. And I believe the ones I've seen, the wheels are actually, are they hexagonal or octagonal in shape? I'm not real sure. But if anyone ever finds one of these locks, please let me know. I'd love to know that he actually made some and that they actually exist. That's another one of the Lorey combination handcuffs owned by another handcuff collector. This one has 6 wheels. And quite simply, once the wheels are doing it, you push the button in and then you can pull the handcuff open. And again, you can see it looks a little different than the other one. There's knurling in different areas. I think he used whatever he had. But that was my research on Joseph Lorey. What did I learn from it? Next. I learned newspapers.com. Newspaper.com, very valuable resource, as is Ancestry. The California State Department was more than helpful. The owners of the actual handcuffs, Gordon Bluff, Tom Gross, and a private collector, I didn't ask his permission to reveal his name, I should have, but another private collector owns one. Persistence, persistence, persistence. I did not give up. I spent the better part of a winter researching all this. Again, I live in Duluth, there's nothing else to do. Examination of the actual locks and restraints. Comparing them. As all of us fellow handcuff collectors have started gathering at these conventions, we often bring the same handcuff and we suddenly discover, wow, different size. We never realized there were 3 sizes of Rankin or 3 sizes of Romer handcuff. And so we start to make these discoveries. But mainly, even after I come to a dead end in researching something on the internet, I start calling the local historical societies in the town where it was patented. And I don't know why, but I have been very lucky to have found people very helpful. They want, I don't know if it's the enthusiasm in my voice or what. A famous handcuff called the Wisner Hoyt. I had all this information on James Wisner. I couldn't find anything on Munson Hoyt, so I called the Historical Society and they called me 4 days later. We got a ton of information for you. Great, what is it? He was a jeweler. He made patent models. He made custom jewelry. And I go, patent models? I own the Wisner Hoyt patent model. I wonder if he made it. I haven't been able to prove it yet, but that's one of my goals. So you just keep at it and keep at it. But I always, continue. Another project I did was the McKenzie myths, and before I talk about that, I want to do another trick. And this one happens to be, how many people here today would like to learn a trick? Anybody want to learn one?
Sure, yeah.
Good, because you're not going to. No, just kidding. I will actually teach you. For those of you that have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, it's really easy. All you have to do is just have a handkerchief. It can be any color. Well, hey, before I teach it, let me actually perform it for you. You just you wave the handkerchief up and down or across, doesn't matter. And then you're gonna place it into the hand just a little ways, and you wiggle your fingers. That doesn't do anything, it just looks cool. And then when you pull it out, it'll look like it changes color. So you push it in a little farther, and then you can pull it out a little farther. And you go almost all the way in, and you get it almost all the way out, and once you get the handkerchief all the way in, you pull it out, and all the little kids, hey, look at it. No, it's not there. And if you want to learn that now, raise your hand. All right, for those that want to learn it, watch. There's two. No, I know you're shy. Here's what you do. You take one of them, and you put it in your hand when no one is looking, like I did it right over there, and then I waved this one. Remember that? That's called misdirection. Everyone is so mesmerized by the waving scarf, they don't even look over here. But in case they do, don't leave it sticking out. It's true. Push it in. Not just like that, so you can, if you accidentally go like this, get it all the way in there, cover the hole with your thumb, and then wave the green. Don't go like this. Or hold it like behind you. Just hold it natural and never, ever, ever show them the yellow scarf. No, if you don't show it to them, it's better. Then take the green one and you just push it a little ways in your hand. And then you pull out the yellow one. And you go like this and you go like that. Never do this. They will see there's two. Not good. So you just get it all the way in there, pull it out, and now you all know how to do a trick, right? Yes. There's one little part I don't understand either. If I ever figure it out, I'll come back and tell you.
What's the green one?
That's the part I don't know either. Or if I do, I'm not going to tell.
Use the microphone.
For the speech? I could for the speech.
The voice, yeah.
The McKenzie mitts. A piece I dreamed my whole life of owning. I finally was able to obtain a pair. And then, that's right about the time I was diagnosed with a form of lymphoma, very treatable form. And so for medical bills, I had to sell them. At least I could say I owned a pair. And I will say that I found them in California, but I didn't know this guy, and he wanted me to send him roughly $3,600, a guy I never met. Just talked to him on the phone. Said he had them, I didn't have a photo. So I called my friend Joe Fox. Joe, if I send you $3,600, will you go over? He lives in Hollywood near you, will you go look at him? And then I give him the address, and Joe says, John, that's a block and a half from my house. So I send the money to Joe. Joe goes over, it's a gated community, he gets in, he says they look really nice, he gives the guy the money, he grabs the mitts, mails them to me, I got my first pair of mitts, but then I had to sell them. And never thought I'd have another shot. Well, then somebody calls me, I got a pair of mitts, you want mine? I'd love to buy them. Where do you live? Hollywood. Hollywood.
Oh, no.
So I called Joe. Joe, will you go buy another pair of mitts for me? And I give him the address. He goes, well, now I got to go a whole mile. What are the odds? So I send Joe the money. Joe goes, not as good a condition, but I have another pair of mitts. But a recurrence of the cancer, I had to sell them, medical bills. So I own 2 pair of McKenzie mitts. That's when a guy called me and said, hey, you want a pair of mitts? And these are rare. There's only 44 known pair to exist. I've owned most of them, no. So this guy wants money. I don't know this guy. But unfortunately, he's not in Hollywood. He's somewhere in Ohio. Or was it? No, it was right near Indy. So who do I know? Pete Chamber. Is it Pete? Where's Pete here? I said, Pete, who went with you? Was it Mark Schultz? I knew Pete, I knew Mark. I trusted them, so I sent them the money. Never saw the money, never got the mitts. No, just kidding. He went over, and not being like, you know, the handcuff expert that some of us are, but they looked them over and they thought they looked really good, so they mailed them to me. Now I now have my third pair of mitts. I bolted them to the floor, so I can't sell them. And I had the same idea, let's research them. Who was Jacob McKenzie that invented these steel mittens? These mittens, I mean, that's a weird handcuff. And I started with Ancestry.com, and boy, what I found out. I researched and we couldn't find anything. I did find a bunch. Jacob McKenzie was born in 1872 in Iowa City, Iowa. His parents, I got his parents' information. I'm not going to read all that to you. He was married. I got his father. I got all the brothers, all the sisters. I got family members. I traced some of the genealogy. I found 2 living members. One of them owns Jacob's Mitts. And she promised me that her kids don't want them, her grandchildren do not want them, and she's called me a few times offering them to me, and I have not had the money, medical bills. But as soon as I can unbolt mine from the floor, I will sell them and buy Jacob McKenzie's own mitts. But the family moved to Woodruff, Kansas when Jacob was a boy, and the state census of 1885 has him living in Woodruff. Jacob married a second marriage to Myrtle Griffin in 1897 and moved to Phillipsburg. He served 2 terms as sheriff. And a story that 3 different family members told me, Jacob had a prisoner handcuffed in front of the body, and the prisoner reached, one of them, grabbed Jacob's gun and shot him in the leg. And so Jacob McKenzie had the idea to invent a handcuff that would prevent you from using a gun. Hence, the steel mittens. And that is a picture I obtained from one of those family members of Sheriff Jacob McKenzie. And I researched his death. There's 3 different obituaries, one from Denver. I found out he moved to Denver toward the end of his life, ended up dying there. And so when I researched his death, I found out where he was buried. And then one of my friends that drove all the way here from Arizona, I figure Arizona, Indy, you know, Colorado's not that far out of his way. Let's send him to the cemetery to get a picture. And so there's Jacob's grave. Thank you, Ron. The next trip that Ron took for me, I heard that there might be a rare leg iron hanging in a sheriff's shop somewhere hundreds of miles from where Ron lives. So I sent him on another excursion, and he got a picture of that for me too. We're a close-knit community. But next, why and where were they sold? This is why I researched. How much did these things cost? You know, where were they manufactured? I never found the answer. And on the advice of several people, including Bob, we had a talk that you may not remember, my friend Mark Lundblad, I may even have talked to Bill, but everybody was telling me, at some point, John, you're not going to get all the answers. You put out what you have out, and then somebody else can take it to the next step. And I didn't want to do that, because I'm very thorough and very obsessed about finding the answers. I never could find some of those. I found very little information. I could find nothing on the McKenzie mitts, and that's when it hit me. Who came up with the name McKenzie mitts? If I was Jacob McKenzie, would I call, hey, these are the McKenzie mitts? No. So I started just randomly typing in, let's type in steel mittens, let's type in steel gloves. And all of a sudden articles started popping up. And I found out the earliest mention of the term McKenzie mitts was in a famous book by a guy named Dick Norman in 1957 called Modern Handcuff Secrets. And that's where they became McKenzie mitts. Before that, they were metal mittens. Numerous articles in newspapers. And when were they sold? They were patented, by the way, in 1925. But I have not been able to prove they were manufactured back then. The majority of them were sold at Inventors Congress fairs across the country in the 1930s. They were called steel mitts, metal mittens. Next. There was a guy named Albert Garrett Burns, and he joined the National Inventors Congress in 1928. He was born in 1888, died in 1951. He lived in Oakland, and he was elected president of the Inventors Congress, and he held conventions across the country. And these were good, fun conventions. And let me tell you, I could give a whole talk on the crazy inventions. The first early police form of Billy Club made around, but some of the crazy, one guy trained a cockroach to go out of his jail cell and steal cigarettes and bring them back in. And these are all crazy inventions on like how to train a cockroach. And I mean, I couldn't believe this stuff was real. Some of the stuff that was invented was unbelievable. But this guy was known as the Gadget Chief, 210 pounds of happy harmony. He served it until 1939. He became known as America's or the nation's Gadget Chief. He had several jobs. He's probably best known, for those that might have heard the name Albert Garrett Burns, for the invention of a lock used for Model T Fords. 800,000 of those locks were sold. His Inventors Congress conventions across the country were very well attended. In Hollywood, as an example, the steel mittens, the McKenzie mitts, were part of this, and they were demonstrated. And since they were kind of unique, they made the paper a lot. But as many as 20,000 people attended the 3-day event just in Hollywood. He had them all over the U.S. Next. They hired actresses to go to these conventions and model the different inventions. And this, of course, is the mitts. But let me tell you, a wonderful actress modeling hitting someone with a billy club was just, I had to like, oh, I gotta print this, I gotta print this. And I just kept saving stuff, and it was unbelievable when I found out. That was a famous actress, and again, when I research stuff, I don't just stop. Who is that? Well, I discovered that was Adrian Hofstadter, born May 29, 1912. She won a beauty contest as a young woman, entered films at the end of the silent film era. She worked into the 1960s, appeared in over 100 films, dying September 7, 1994 from injuries received in the 94 Northridge, California earthquake. So you leave no stone unturned. You research right down to the minutest detail. Another famous actress, Cecilia Parker, modeled the mitts. And on the rear of the original photograph, which was dated April 23rd of 1936, it states, "These were the contribution of one nimble-minded inventor at the Inventors Congress held recently at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Cecilia Parker, charming Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer feature player, tries on a pair of the new steel mitts that are claimed to absolutely foolproof and unbreakable." And I will say that if you have these on, you really could not use a gun. As a matter of fact, one story that I have not been able to verify was that they were so secure, they were banned from use because they were used to transport prisoners across the country by train. And the prisoners were so incapacitated, they couldn't even relieve themselves. And the guards were unwilling to do it, so they were no longer used. That was Dick Norman's story. Other actresses, Miss Lucille Cochran, these appeared in newspapers at every one of these fairs. And next, contact surviving family members, do the genealogy. A lot of these locks that are patented, I found there's a famous Woods chain handcuff. I found a family descendant, and they said, well, we actually have a shoebox that belonged to my grandfather. I said, could you take a picture of it for me? So they sent me a picture of not a shoebox, a cigar box. They sent me a picture of the closed cigar box. I said, no, could you please open it up and photograph what's inside? And there was like extra chain, ball bearings, extra castings, a complete leg iron, a brass one. There were all these extra parts, and then there was a weird looking one. I said, what is that weird looking one with a different chain? They said, well, the story we got was that was Grandpa's prototype. That was what he and then I said, would you be willing to ever part with any of that? Just the prototype thing. That looks different. We don't like it. And what would you want for something like that? What's your address? And so I sent them my address, and they said, do you do PayPal? I go, yeah. And I'm just like expecting, how long would I have to sell? How much money I have to borrow from my friend Terry? And she goes, $25 too much? And so I said, no, it's not too much, it's too little. I'll give you 26. No. I did pay her a more reasonable price, but I still got it very, very reasonable. But you contact those surviving members. When I prodded Virginia for her email reply to me was, the story that Jake was shot by a prisoner with his own gun has been a statement that's been in the family for years. I heard it from my mother and Jake's sister, my grandmother, and next. From another family member, good grief, John, you know more about the family than I've ever heard. I'm not into genealogy, I guess. And that was from Joan McKenzie. And then Joan McKenzie said, but I do have a pair of the mitts. And she's got Jacob's pair. She would email me, glad to get your message. I had to dig in the cedar chest and see what I could find. I'm still recovering from hip replacement surgery, too slow, and finishing up items on the death of my husband. It may take me a week to get around to digging. I have quite an envelope of history on my husband's father, and perhaps there's some information in it. The mitts I do have a chain and have a key, but the key has one flange, whatever you call it, broken off, so it will not open the lock. And by the way, I sent her a proper key and it works perfect. Next, she sent me all these photos. Jacob and his wife. There on the left is Jacob modeling his own mitts that he invented.
Wow.
Jacob wearing the mitts. There on the left are his children, Myrtle, Jake, and Talbot. And I found out they adopted Talbot, but he was misbehaving, so they gave him back. And when they gave Talbot back, I actually contacted Talbot's grandson, and he didn't want to talk to me because he's pretty bitter about the whole thing. But you come across some that are willing to help and some that don't.
Yeah.
There's Jacob at the age of 80-something in 1948 playing violin. That was in 1948, and he loved to play violin at local things. I leave no stone unturned. I contact the family members. I use newspaper.com. I use Ancestry. Next, other players in the game, there was a guy named A.G. Jacobs. I can't find anything on this guy. And man, was I mad. Pictured in 1927 Popular Mechanics magazine, he's wearing some type of prototype of the mitts. But they're not McKenzie mitts. And then an A.L. Elliott, pictured in December 27 issue of the magazine, was named in the early 30s as the inventor. He sold the mitts at the inventor shows. Jacob McKenzie didn't sell them. A.L. Elliott did. How did Elliott get the rights to do this? How did he buy it from McKenzie? Information I couldn't find. Maybe someone else can take it to the next step. I found a Popular Mechanics magazine that was actually published by the editor himself, where he made notes and wrote the addresses of every photo that was ever published. And so it's got, A.G. Jacobs' address at the time when it was published in 1927, him wearing a different type of mitts. It's got address and why he submitted the photo, and they published it. And then there's a picture of McKenzie himself later from 1933, Popular Mechanics wearing them. I can't figure out who this Elliott guy is. And to me, that's a stone unturned that I can't leave unturned. I'm still hoping something will eventually be digitized, or I have to go to Denver and physically do the research. I also got to go to Saginaw, Elmira, New York, and several other locations to try and continue some of these projects. That was another article, constructed of steel and weighing about 3 pounds per pair, a new type of handcuffs fit on the hands like mittens. A small chain with adjustable handcuff lock goes around the wrist to prevent the small hand from being withdrawn. A 4-inch chain holds the mitts together at the palms, while a length of chain around the prisoner's body holds the hand close to the body to prevent use of the steel mittens as a club. So they were thinking, it was well thought out. So then I also researched how many pair are out there. Who's got them? Who owns them? What's the history of each pair? There was a pair that sold at the Jim Main auction in 2007. There were also several thousand padlocks sold at that auction. Down on the lower right were 2 pairs that Houdini supposedly owned. Well, they were patented in 1925. Houdini died in 1926. It is possible Houdini owned them. But every bit of evidence I'm able to find, the first known photo of actual McKenzie mitts was 1927, year after Houdini died. So they could have been Houdini's brother, because Houdini's brother was known to have run around and said, "These were my brothers, you want to buy them?" He did do that on occasion, so it was not verified. There's a pair of my friend that drove from Arizona. Ron, that's your pair, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Ron bought them because they had a complete history. And again, for me, it's about the history. And to be honest, when I come to these shows, it's not even about the items, it's about the friends. It's about the people. But then again, I go back to Duluth, and I don't get to see the people. Because nobody lives in Duluth. And the winters are 8 months long. And so I had nothing to do with spend time on the internet researching this stuff. I know you can't read it, don't worry about it, but that's all the newspaper articles I discovered as these were sold at Inventors. There's over 40 articles selling the McKenzie mitts at Inventors Congress fairs in 1934, 35, and 36. I believe that that's when the majority of them got out there. Next topic, Charles Romer. I'm going to just touch on this. And I've been in discussion with my good friend Bob on possibly doing a project with this, but I just want to show you, he's my new area of interest. I searched 25 years to try to find a Romer handcuff. I finally got my first Romer handcuff. I went up and I just like so carefully put it on the handcuff board, and I turn around and I go, what's next? That's what we do. That's us. That's collectors. So Charles Romer, the Romer and Company in Newark, New Jersey. That's a line drawing from a book on Essex County that I found. And then I started looking up street address directories. And I found ads in the back of them. And this is paging through 1,000-page books till you find the ads you need. And I went from 1865 all the way up to 1905 and found ads in almost every single year. Just a few of them. There's another one, Romer and Company, manufacturer of patent padlocks, but they also patented sewing machine locks, builder's hardware, bronze doorknobs, trimmings. They made all kinds of stuff. Next, another one, jail locks, brass and iron padlocks. I got all their different addresses of where they were located. This is back from the 1895 street address directory. And I can tell you this, then I did the genealogy. Charles Romer was the son of a Henry Romer, a wagon and carriage maker, born on October 27, 1827 in Germany. He immigrated to the U.S. on April 19, 1849, sailing from the port of Brennan and arriving in New York on board the Argyle. You know that Ancestry.com, you can actually look up the name of the ship because they got the passenger list on there now. Not only can you find the name of the ship, but I actually went on there and found pictures of the ship. So I've got the pictures of the photos of the ship that they immigrated here on, sailing from the port of Brennan. After working as a blacksmith, arriving in the U.S., in Albany, New York, making 4 shillings a day, he settled in Newark, New Jersey. He obtained a position as a locksmith working for Henry C. Jones, H.C. Jones Company. Within 2 years, he was superintendent of the H.C. Jones Lock Factory and remained there until he purchased the company from Henry Jones upon his retirement in 1870. Charles Romer took the company over, became the Romer Company. Who patented the handcuff? A guy named Herman Aaron. He holds the patent for the Romer handcuffs. He was born March 19th, again, I gotta find everything out. March 19th, 1840 in Brandenburg, and I can't even pronounce it one, Brandenburg, Germany. He arrived on the steamship America from the port of Brennan in 1865. He holds 8 patents, 6 of them assigned to Romer and Company. He's listed on various street address directories as a locksmith, as a pattern maker, and finally a lock manufacturer. Although I have no 100% positive proof, it's believed he worked for Romer and Company. That's what I found out, that somebody in this room had the board notes for the Romer Company. The actual notes kept by the board of directors. Here, John, take them home, read them. I did, and I transcribed them all because it was handwriting and it was horrible to read, and it took me weeks to translate all the board notes for many, many years, and for trusting me with those. And as difficult as they were to return, I did. But thank you, Bob. That's when Bob says, I've got more. I've got all the sales books that are big, thick volumes. Well, I still have those at the house because they're like 800 pages each, and I know every single lock and every single company, but it doesn't do me a lot of good when I don't know what so 6 dozen Romer number 4s to this steamship company. I'm going, what's a Romer number 4? Yeah. So now I've got to educate myself on Romer padlocks. So I have become a padlock collector as well as a handcuff collector. Yes, thank you. I now own 17, after today, 19 Romer padlocks. Ian McCall took a Romer apart once and repaired it and took photos of the inside for me. Next. There's a piece I dream of owning someday. Hint, hint. These are the tiny little one, 1/2 inch high roller padlocks. And when I was at Bob Dix's and he was kind enough to show Mark Lundblad and I around his incredible, unbelievable collection, I mean H.C. Jones locks and all these rare locks, I got stuck photographing that because they were Romer and they were still in the casting tree. So I wanted those. Romer patents, and I've actually enlarged that list thanks to my friend Vince from New Jersey, who's done a bunch. He's right from Newark. He found a bunch more patents. There's the 3 sizes of Romer. The top one was recently discovered. And I actually own 9 different Romer restraints right now. People always thought there were only 4, but I've got 9 different ones now, where they're stamping. And the last thing I want to talk about today is a friend of mine that I'm going to have to mention, Bill, back there. Bill and his wife Janet are here. And Bill told me something. He said, hey John, you know the National Archives in Kansas, and this is what I talked about in Indy, they don't just have the patents. They have all the correspondence between attorneys and everything else. So Mark Lundblad and I had a weekend off, and we took a few days. I wasn't working as I was just recovering from my stem cell transplant. We drove to Kansas City, and we went in there, and we never expected to find what we found. There weren't just like a few letters. Like each file had 12 to 100 pieces of documentation besides the patent. And these are all housed at the National Archives in Kansas City, Missouri. Any one of you can go and they pull the original patent. You can carefully open it up, and you have to be very careful. They won't let you photocopy on white paper because you might switch it for the original. You can't bring a pen in, you can only bring a pencil. I brought in Mark Lundblad, for those that know, one of my dearest friends, but he's a little old-fashioned. He wanted to photocopy everything. And I'm a little more modern. I was on a thumb drive. Oh, I wish I was Mark. Because I scanned all these documents, and then I put my Indianapolis talk on that same thumb drive, and said I can show the documents, and I brought it to Indy. And when I got to Indy, it was gone. I look at it like, c'est la vie, I learned a lesson. Lost it all. I look at it like this. I get to go back. And this time I'll scan it all, and each night I will transfer it to my hard drive. But this is just a couple examples. There were believe it or not, and we're talking 1860, it cost $15 to apply for your patent, and if they granted it, you had to pay another $20. $35. And they have all the receipts there. There's letters, almost every patent was denied for crazy reasons. I'm sorry, but your handcuff infringes on a bracelet that was patented 8 years ago. And the very, it was just nuts. And for instance, there's a Palmer handcuff called, everybody thought that this James Palmer patented this handcuff. No, the actual assignee was the United States Navy. All the documentation and stuff we can learn is incredible there. That's just an example of a Carberry, because there was a Carberry here and I knew somebody would bring one. It's a complete coincidence. But a handwritten letter from Herman, or to Herman Aaron, a handcuff that says, this was unusual. In 1880, things changed. You would have a patent model up to the year 1880. Following 1880 on, no patent model was required. But evidently they didn't understand Romer's and Aaron's drawings, so they actually wrote, the patent office, the above case having been taken up for examination, a model seems to be useful and is required. And then it was, signed by one of the clerks of the patent office. So they actually had to have made a patent model of the Romer handcuff. Of course, nobody knows where that is, but it's a fascinating place. A couple of my friends have said things over the years that I've written down. Knowledge is only valuable if it's shared. My friend Ian told me that in 2001 when I visited him, and he was teaching me all the stuff that he. I learned from a machinist, and I'm not a trained machinist, but I learned, my parameters, and Ian goes, no! You look at the piece, and you drill a hole and hope it fits. And after all the practice he did, with him it usually did. Bob Dylan, another fan of mine, he not busy being born is busy dying. And what he meant by that, always move forward, always learn, never give up, never just rest. Oh, I've got this lock, it's on my shelf, I'm happy. No, try to learn more about it. try to learn something about the inventor. And many of us have said something to this effect. We're only temporary caretakers of our collections. All of us are. We're temporary caretakers. They'll be here long after most of us are gone. It's our duty to not only collect them, but pass on their history to the next generation of owners. And sometimes some of the false history gets passed on, and then the story gets passed on, and that's not a very good thing. And then many people, including Bob Dix, I mentioned specifically, but at some point you may not have all the answers you're looking for, but you have to put the information out, and any other questions to be answered, they can use your research as a starting point. And that's hard for me. I wanted all the answers, and I always want all the answers. And I can't get them, and I can't find, why haven't I done something on Romer yet? I can't figure out when he died. Vince, my friend, started walking all the cemeteries in Newark, New Jersey. Did you find any Romers?
Different spelling, but not the first name.
Yeah.
And I also checked family members to see if I could, find like a grouping of stones, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So I guess at this point we'll have to do something, Bob, and let the next guys finish it up. But this is just my passion, research. I hope all of you pass on the history of your favorite locks and of whatever you collect. We're not quite done yet. We're going to do a couple of tricks for you to end the show tonight. 3 tricks here to end the show, and I'm going to call a friend of mine up in a minute here too. But first of all, I just want to thank you for paying attention and be great listeners on the part about just my passion, which is research. Thank you for that. Very quickly, a couple of tricks here to end the evening. I did a rope trick earlier. Let me do another one. I'm going to walk right out here. Could you examine that rope, sir? Pull on it, tug on it. Make sure it's good, strong, solid rope. Doesn't matter, I'm going to do the trick with this rope. Is it strong? I will use it in a minute. It took me years to learn this knot. I know it looks easy, but believe me, it's not. No pun intended. It looks like an overhand knot. It's not. Matter of fact, that's the only knot that when you grab the middle and pull, the ends come off. This leaves me with a rope with no end, so it's all middle. And the hard part comes when you go to put it back. Somebody just say stop. Stop. Right there. So you just wrap it around, and that puts the ends right back on. Now I can't say that Houdini invented this one, but somebody I kind of actually know did. So what he did is he actually tied a double knot so that the knot didn't come off. And then he cut the rope. And with some of the medications I'm on, I didn't want to carry his scissors around in my pocket. So if you pardon me, I just used my fingers. We cut the rope in 2. This leaves us with 2 ropes tied together with a very strong knot. And being the Houdini expert I am, 2 ropes, even at the top, even at the bottom, the exact same length. That's where the fun begins. Because if you just cross your hands, you start with 1 rope. And no, it gets better. The hardest part of it, switching them. Every rope has a middle. Every rope has 2 ends. And I can make them trade places. When you say go. Like everybody. Go. Okay, just joking. Houdini did it this way. He would take the end of the rope into his hand, and he would just make it go right through the middle of the rope and pop up right there. Then this end would go right into his hand, travel right through, popping out here, leaving the middle where the ends used to be. Now somebody a moment ago examined this rope, and I'm just going to toss this. Bob, could you examine that rope? And what was your name, sir?
Mike.
Mike examined this rope. Could you just double check Mike's work?
Sure.
Thank you. You look at this one. Check him out. Hold on. Is that good, strong rope, Bob? He knows whipping. Yes, thank you. I'm a Boy Scout. I was the Eagle Scout. He actually knows that. Is that good, strong rope?
It is.
Does it like stretch or shrink or anything?
No, it's not
A
doing.
long rope, a short rope. Just in case any of you were drinking. Going them up different. A medium rope. Here's the fun. Long, medium, short, even at the top. Long rope, medium rope, short rope, even at the bottom. If they're even at the top and the bottom, isn't it logical that they'd be even in the middle? Wait, just a little more there. To me, with not one, not two, but 3 ropes of equal size. I don't want to end it there, though. I want to put it back the way I found it. And that was where this rope, even though it looks the same size as those ropes, is actually the rope that only a moment ago was about this, well, about this big. One of the ropes is long, one is medium, one is short. A little rope trick for you all this evening.